Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns, disputes that may arise or exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream page of this hearing on oakville.ca, and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. And the number is also posted below the screen at the live stream page of oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you do call in, staff will ask for your name, item number that you wish to address, and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided to call back to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, the Secretary Treasurer will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of their application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to the presentation. You will need to state your name and address for the record. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make such presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to any comments made by interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in the staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this is your opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of the decision for any application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Only applicants, specified persons, and public bodies may appeal decisions in respect of applications for minor variance and consents to the Ontario Land Tribunal. A notice of appeal may not be filed by any other individual, person, or unincorporated association or group. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consents to the applicant, agent, or any other person who has filed a written request for such a notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, the applicant, specified persons, or public bodies may appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The last day to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and any other person participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have no regrets this evening. Do I have any declaration of pecuniary interests? Okay, I see none. Thank you. Requests for deferral or withdrawal. Madam Secretary Treasurer, I'll be taking those at this present time. If there's anyone who is in attendance in the hearing and wish to request a deferral or withdraw an application, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will unmute you and allow you to speak. Good evening. Ms. Karajosi, you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, good evening. We're requesting a deferral for the application for 1406 Acton Crescent.
1406 Acton, that's 032, correct?
Yes.
CAV 032.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. I'm assuming you're requesting a deferral since you did not get a favorable support from the town staff,
Yes.
and you're looking to work on this further.
That's right. We had a couple objections. We want to work on this further with the planning department.
Very well. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. You'll see the secretary treasurer when you are able to and ready.
Okay, thank you.
Any other deferrals, Madam Secretary Treasurer? Ms. Beaumont, good evening. You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
I apologize. You'd think I'd know that by now.
It's okay. It happens to all of us.
Here today from Orchard Associates to request deferral of 384 Ashbury. That is item number 3 on the agenda, CAVA 031-2023. We've seen staff comments, and we too would like some time to tweak the plan a little bit and maybe bring down the GFA and work with planning on this application.
Very well, thank you. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're good and ready.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. We still have... Anyone else, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I'm just promoting Mr. Rada Al-Rawi.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Committee.
Good evening, Mr. Arawi. How are you?
Good, thank you. I would like to request a deferral for application number CAV A034 for 223 Tweedsdale Crescent. Okay. We used to discuss with the planning team before we come to the committee, but this time we were not granted this. So we had to apply, and now we get the comments, we understand them, and we'll work with the planning team to get their blessing before we come again in front of the committee.
Very well. All those who are in support of a deferral. Okay, the application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're good and ready.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Is that it, Madam Secretary Treasurer? Is there anyone else who is waiting for a deferral?
Yes, Mr. Robinson, Ian Robinson.
Okay. Mr. Robertson, you are here for which application?
I'm here for 148 Maple Grove Drive, CAV A035.
Got you, yes.
We just received planning comments on Monday, and we would like some time to address them and work with planning to adopt our application to some of their comments. So we'd like to defer.
Very well, thank you. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Anyone else, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I don't see anybody else that's requesting deferral.
Okay. So we'll start on with the first item on our agenda for this evening is CAV 029 of 2023 at 124 Gloucester Avenue. Again, it's CAV 029 of 2023 at 124 Gloucester Avenue. Good evening, Ms. Medviva.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So for the record, my name is Stephanie Matviva, planner with Glenn Schnarr and Associates, representing the owner. The address would be 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle in Mississauga. If I could have the next slide, please. So the application before us is for the property municipally known as 124 Gloucester Avenue. Sorry, always have a hard time with that one. It's on the east side of Gloucester Avenue, north of Lakeshore Road. It's located within an established residential neighborhood. If I could have the next slide, please. The application before us tonight, the owner is seeking permission to construct an accessory rear yard cabana structure. This requires 2 variances. So the first being an additional lot coverage of 24.63%, whereas 19% is permitted, and the second being to permit a reduced east interior side yard setback of 1.61 meters, whereas 1.8 is required. Just while we're on this slide, just to highlight, the second variance is technical in nature and is to recognize the existing location of the detached dwelling that is currently on the lot. This detached dwelling is to be retained and will not be modified in any way, shape, or form. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan indicating the location of the cabana structure, again, in the rear yard, located at a distance and separated from the existing dwelling. It's sufficiently located within the lot, so there's sufficient landscaping and open space to be provided. There's, could I have the next slide, please? This is a rendering of the proposed cabana structure. So as you can see on this slide, the one wall that's shared along the side property line is to be closed off, so will not be visible. Additionally, the landscape open space that's provided along the shared side yard as well as the rear yard, in addition to plantings and privacy screening, will provide for sufficient privacy and will not have adverse overlook concerns. Just to highlight, the proposed cabana structure is approximately 20.7 square meters in size. This contributes approximately 1.49% of the total lot coverage. The remainder of the lot coverage is attributed to the existing dwelling. So as highlighted in my submission cover letter, it's my opinion that the proposed cabana structure is appropriate. It maintains the existing character of the surrounding neighborhood and satisfies the 4 tests of the Planning Act. And just quickly, I'll go through the remaining elevations. So if I could have the next slide, please. Here's the elevation of the proposed front elevation. So the closed wall along the shared side property line is immediately visible. The remainder of the cabana would be open to the rear yard and allows for greater enjoyment of the outdoors and provides for greater enjoyment of the yard for the family needs. If I could have the next slide. Here's the proposed rear elevation, so it gives a better indication of that closed wall. Again, provides for sufficient privacy and sufficiently addresses privacy and overlook concerns, particularly to the immediate neighbor. If I could have the next slide. Now here are the side elevations, again, just indicating where the additional plantings will be provided and provides for an area that's open to and addresses the rear yard. Happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Thank you, Ms. Medviva. Are there any questions or items of clarifications at this time? Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone raised their hand that they would like to speak to this application?
As far as I can see, nobody wants to speak in regards to this application.
Okay, very well. Ms. Medviva, we recognize that you have 4 letters of support. Have you had a chance to speak to Ms. Jennifer Chong, who provided the 1 letter of objection?
The owner has spoken to that landowner, so we understand that there's a little bit of concerns, but those concerns have been satisfactorily addressed.
Very well, that's what we like to hear. Thank you. Okay, if there are no questions and no one has called in to speak to the application, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as noting that the town's written staff report is in support of the application, also having taken into account the presentation made this evening by the applicant's agent, as well as noting that there were no negative oral objections in tonight's presentation, and noting that there were 4 letters of support with regards to the application, noting that there was 1 letter of objection, but noting that the agent has noted that there has been discussions with that letter and that things have been satisfied. I am prepared to move a motion in support of the application as applied for, finding that it does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And I would like to put the following 2 conditions. The first one, that the existing attached private, says garage, private cabana be permitted, and that the attached private garage be permitted, and that the accessory building be constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawing submitted for this application. And the second condition, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Application CAV 030 of 2023 for 1310 Hillview Crescent. Again, it's CAV 030 of 2023 at 1310 Hillview Crescent. Oh, we've got Miss Medviva again.
Yep.
I thought I was seeing doubles.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So this application, if I can have the next slide, please, is for the property municipally known as 1310 Hillview Crescent. It's located again on the east side of Hillview Crescent within an established residential neighborhood. This particular property is bordered and adjacent to Morrison Valley, so it does have a valley land feature. If I could have the next slide, please. The owner is seeking permission to construct a 2nd-story addition. I'd just like to highlight while we're here, the owner is seeking permission for the 2nd-story addition. It will retain and reuse the existing walls of the dwelling. So this is literally just adding additional living space on top. So the existing setbacks to the creek and the natural areas have been maintained, and that was done intentionally. Also, just while we're on this, so the maximum height permission of 9.3 meters is being requested, whereas 9 meters is to be provided. This is largely a technical in nature variance. The bylaw requires that maximum height be measured from established grade to the top of the peak of the roof. In this instance, because the site has unique locational attributes, being located adjacent to a creek, the established grade is actually quite low. So if I could have the next slide, please. This is the site plan just indicating again, that the existing walls of the dwelling are to be retained, and interior alterations will be provided in due course to accommodate greater living space and better accommodate the changing needs of the family. If I could have the next slide, please. So on the note of maximum height and established grade, this image indicates the proposed front elevation. As you can see, the established grade is measured nearly halfway up between the floor and ceiling of the basement level. So again, this is a unique instance, and it's largely due to the changing elevation of the property, and that the elevation closest to Hillview Crescent street line is significantly higher than the elevation towards the creek in the rear yard. The proposed built form has been carefully planned and designed to maintain, respect, and seamlessly integrate with the established character of the surrounding neighborhood. The built form itself and the built form features are very similar and integrate with those in the surrounding neighborhood. So in my opinion, the surrounding neighborhood can be described as eclectic. It contains a variety of built forms and built form features. It also contains a variety of dwellings of varying heights, including two-story dwellings that are similarly situated adjacent to and backing onto the creek. If I could have the next slide, please. Here's the proposed elevation. Again, it indicates the location of the established grade to the measurement from established grade to the top of the peak of the roof. Again, it maintains a variety of different architectural features to provide a visual reduce of massing and scale, but also to maintain consistency with the surrounding neighborhood character. If I could have the next slide, please. And these are the side elevations. So in this instance, the side elevations generally feature an absence of openings. This allows for privacy and overlook concerns to be satisfactorily addressed. Happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Thank you, Ms. Medveda. Has anyone called for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer, or requested to speak at this time?
There is no phone calls at this time.
Okay. Very well. Ms. Medveda, I'm going to ask you the same. Actually, no, I'm not. Yes, I will. You've addressed those concerns. You alluded to that in your presentation. I'm just asking you if you've actually spoken to the neighbors. And
the owner has. So we understand and we reviewed the letter of objection from the surrounding neighbor. Conversations have been had with that particular neighbor as well as the surrounding neighbors. So the concerns have been satisfactorily addressed. Just while we're here, there will be improvements to the yard that also address the neighbor's concerns. So in particular, the pool will be removed and other aspects will be taken to address the concern.
Very well. I sincerely appreciate that. And I just want to go on record in saying that we hope that all applicants take those steps, because it certainly makes things easier between the neighbors, and definitely makes our job easier as well, to see that the applicants are working with the neighbors and they are doing everything to address their concerns. So thank you for that. Having said that, since there are no calls and no items or questions for clarification, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit and having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, and having heard the applicant's presentation, I am satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act. On that basis, I'll put forward a motion of approval, and that motion would be subject to 2 conditions. Those being that the additions be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated January 18th, 2023, and the elevation drawings dated January 24th, 2023, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no members of the public present with respect to this matter, and the provided letter of objection has been satisfactorily addressed by the applicant.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Ms. Medveda.
Thank you. Good night.
Mr. Westeroff, you had your hand up. Was this for this application?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I did not see you.
So I just raised it.
Oh, okay.
So through you, Chair, I just wanted to draw the committee's attention to the regional comments that were issued for this application. the region requested a deferral based on the fact that the proposed dwelling is within 120 meters of a regional natural heritage system. So, you know, if you want to approve, that's fine. Might I just recommend an additional 2 conditions be added? That satisfaction of the region of Halton be included, as well as that Conservation Halton be consulted for their comments and satisfied with the proposed development prior to the approval of the variance. You might require a small change to the end of the first condition. So instead of, you know, that the plans in general accordance with the site plan elevations to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. Don't know if this is the right time to be doing this. Apologies if it's not, but just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I prefer if we always keep our cameras on. That way, if you want to get my attention, then I can see you. Because sometimes we miss those hands that are up on our multi-screens. With that respect, I'm looking through the regions, just going back to look at the region comments. Since we've already passed the motion, we've already approved it. So I'm going to ask the Secretary Treasurer what the legal route is to this.
I really, the motion was already moved.
Yes.
And approved with stated conditions. So might as well I check on this one. And if we can amend to add the 2 conditions, like let me get back to you. Okay.
Okay, you can. How long will it take you to get back to us?
Just a second.
Okay. Ms. Madriga, did you see those comments from region?
We did see the comments. As I said, so the way that I interpreted those comments, it seems like there is some clarification required. Just to confirm, like the existing walls will be retained. We're definitely willing to work through the regional process as well as Conservation Halton. So just also for clarity, conversations have been had with Conservation Halton staff. The appropriate approvals are underway. So we would be willing to accept a condition that requires those approvals to be formalized.
Okay, and it's my understanding that even when we do approve variances and the Conservation Halton has concerns with them, they trump our approval of those variances, correct? Mr. Talowski?
Madam Chair, I believe the condition from Conservation Authority falls under applicable law. If they're within a regulated area, they're required to get a permit. There's no need for this committee to make that a condition.
Okay, I thought that was our understanding from previous practices, that even when we did have question marks with respect to Conservation Halton's comments, we always left it to be so because building would not be allowed to continue unless their requirements were met.
I just got the same answer that I had before. After moving the motion, the agent could left, and those conditions were never been imposed. So I would say that we were done with the moving motion and consider the conditions. However, the region or conservation, they could appeal decision if they want to put the additional conditions on the decision.
Okay, very well. Okay. So there is a way for the Conservation Halton to step in and appeal and apply the necessary conditions that they would like. But I'm satisfied that those concerns have with respect to any motions that would be needed from our committee have been satisfied.
And can I just add to all planners who is going to present any application that they need to do everything before the moving the motion. Otherwise, even though I can't stop the moving the motion or anything like during the motion read and the conditions read by the members. So whoever wants to change something, just please do before when you should address any concerns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very well. And and again, my note to the planners are: if you are going to be presenting or your application is up for discussion, please keep your camera on, because that's the best way for us to see whether you have your hand up or not. Thank you. Ms. Medviva, I think we're okay. I'm pretty sure that you'll do what you need to do to satisfy the region's comments, and you're already en route to do that.
Yes.
Okay, I will say good night, and we'll take the next matter in on our agenda.
Thank you again. Have a good night.
Good night. Okay, we are at application CAV 033 of 2023 at 403 San Augustine Drive. Again, it's CAV 033 of 2023 at 403 St. Augustine Drive. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. Thank you. Who is the agent for this application?
Good evening. My name is Nalaya Tabra. I'm from Land and Building Experts. On behalf of the owner, we are representing this application.
Mr. Tabra, can you please put your camera on? Very well. Have you submitted a presentation to town staff so that they can bring it up?
No.
Okay. Well, they have your site plan up. Go ahead.
This neighborhood has been remarkably stable.
I'm sorry, can you speak up, because it's very difficult to hear you?
This neighborhood has been remarkably stable. The lotting fabric is unchanged through the years, and the original lotting fabric remains same today, and the original plans and designs could not be expected to anticipate circumstances 60 years in the future. Please note that the current zoning permits two-story houses. The application of the planning test is more than applying a trend line, but one minor variance application in the right circumstances might be sensitive, gradual, and fitting. Otherwise, the neighborhood is frozen in time. This is not the intent of the official plan. Through rezonings, the town of Oakville has cautiously permitted variances when such change is sensitive, gradual, and fitting. Our client proposed to construct a new home and request relief for an increase in residential floor area and an increased projection of the attached garage from the face of the front main wall. According to the staff of the town of Oakville, we also require relief for an increase in lot coverage and a reduced rear setback. The proposed porches increase the lot coverage by 2% to 36.6%. That is 1.6% more than the permitted maximum lot coverage of 35%. When the lot coverage of the porches are excluded, the lot coverage is 33.6% and is compatible with the zoning bylaw. The proposed rear porch will reduce the rear setback to 7.14 meter, whereas the required minimum rear setback is 7.5 meter. If the rear porch is excluded, the rear setbacks of the building is 8.51 meter and is compatible with the zoning bylaw. For 125 Prince Charles Drive, which is located in the same neighborhood, a floor area ratio of 45.18 was approved by the committee last year. So we will accept the floor area ratio projection of the attached garage from the face of the front wall, lot coverage, and the required rear setback that are gradual and fit into the geographical and temporal context of the neighborhood, and approvable to this committee to maintain the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw to protect the existing character of the neighborhood. So we will accept the number you guys are, it is approvable to you guys. Thank you.
I have so many questions. Are there any comments or items of clarification of Mr. Dio at this time? Okay, maybe I'll start. When you say we will accept the figure that you are providing, can you clarify what you're speaking about?
For an example.
And if you can just speak into the mic, we would appreciate that because it makes it very difficult to understand.
The zoning bylaw is asking for maximum permitted floor space index of 43, and we are asking more than that, but we will accept whatever the number is, 45, 46, 47, that is acceptable to the committee, we will accept that. So whatever you guys can approve for us, we will accept that and we'll work with that.
Okay, hold on. But does that mean that you are dropping your second, is it your first or your second? Let me just go up again. Your second variance, which is the maximum residential floor area?
Yes, to any number that is approvable to you guys, we are fine, we will take it.
Okay, but that will affect your plans. It's very difficult to just go by that. Okay, let's table that question. I have other questions. You've also seemed to have missed several variances that staff are discussing in their notes, primarily the rear yard, the minimum rear yard, which seems to be at 7.14 versus what is required, which is 7.15. You've also missed a lot coverage calculation. The required is 35% and your lot coverage is 36.6%. Did you see the comments from staff? I understand that everyone received them on Friday, and that's why it's best if you are not in accordance with what staff is proposing or commenting on. Usually a deferral is the best route, but given that there are several variances that are missed, I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to read staff's report.
Yes, we did. So that's why if you guys like whatever the numbers the committee is going to approve, we will revise our drawings and accordingly and submit to the city for building permit.
So we don't do that because if we approve a variance, it is attached to the drawings that are submitted with an application. So we do not accept that plans or drawings be submitted on the fly. That's one. And two, I honestly can't tell how these variances affect your plans until I've actually had a look at your revised plans, not to mention the other variances that have been missed. I will table my comments until I've heard from my colleagues. Who would like to ask questions or have items of clarification of the applicant at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just think that the applicant and their agent at the beginning of the meeting should have deferred this application. And the reason being is it sounds like that they are amenable to working with the town staff to amend what their second variance is. I know that the way it stands right now, I would not be in support of approving this application. And it sounds like that, you know, they are amenable to amending it, but are unaware that, you know, it's not at this stage of the committee that we would be in support of doing so. So I just wanted to make that note. Like, I'm not in support of the application as it is right now. And however, I would be in support of a deferral.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington, for your comments. Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Chair, I will allow you the opportunity to request a deferral if you so choose. I don't know if it's your first time before us, or you did not have a good chance to read the comments, but typically we deal with deferrals and withdrawals of applications in the beginning. And my suggestion to you is, if you're still seeking variance number 1 and you would like to have your application heard, then I would suggest a deferral so that we can have new plans drawn up and we can look at the application on its merits. If you so choose and you're dropping the second variance as well as the possible missed variances, then or you would like to drop all the variances, then you can just withdraw your application altogether and we would not make a decision about it this evening. How would you like to proceed?
We would like to proceed with a deferral, please.
A deferral?
Yes.
Okay, very well. So I will allow you that courtesy, given the circumstances. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. Please see the Secretary Treasurer when you are ready.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. We have, and I will just like to, before moving forward, for application CAV 033 of 2023 at 403 St. Augustine Drive, all the members of the neighborhood who have submitted letters of objection, we do have your letters of objection on hand. Ms. Brenda Poole, Ms. Susie Wickett, and Ms. Macon Poff. I hope I'm reading that correctly. You will get another notification once the applicant has submitted a new application for the new new hearing date with new plans, and at that time you will be more than welcome to resubmit any letters of objections or concerns or attend the meeting, and you will be heard at that time. Mr. Bright, I see you. You are in attendance and you are listed as a person who has requested to attend. The comments that I just made are directed to yourself as well. Very well, thank you. And we are moving on to our next application. That's application CAV 036 at 152 Chisholm Street. Again, that's application CAV 036 of 2023 at 152 Chisholm Street. Excuse me.
Hey, good evening.
Hello. Hello,
Yes, hello,
Ms.
good
Via.
evening.
How are you?
Madam Chair, I'm fine, thank you. Members of the committee, good evening. My name is Emily Villa, and I'm from the Office of John and Woman Architect Inc., and I'm here to represent the homeowner, Mr. Shahzahan Rao. Could you please turn to, yes, that page, please, the site plan. I'd like to describe the variances that we are seeking. We are asking for reduced side yard setback of 0.59 meters, whereas 0.6 meters is the minimum in this zone. That's RL8 Special Provision 129. And you could see that it's number 3. Highlight is number 3 at the bottom, at the front. And the variance requested is an existing condition, and we are asking for the existing setback to remain. We are also asking to permit a minimum separation distance of 1.70 meters and 1.80 meters, whereas the minimum separation distance is 2.4 meters. And you could see that in the highlight, it's number 1 and number 2. And lastly, we are asking for a reduced aggregate distance of the interior side yards, a total of 1.48 meters, whereas the aggregate distance is a minimum of 2.4 meters. And again, if you look at the site plan, I highlighted number 3. At the top, it's I could see that it's 0.89 meters and 0.59 meters. And we are asking for a reduced separation distance and a reduced aggregate distance to be applicable to the proposed second-story addition and the rear 2-story addition. If you could scroll to slides 3 and 4, please, just to show the elevations. That's right, and page 4, please. And to page 5. Our client has canvassed the neighborhood and he has received 2 letters of support, and you can see that in the 2 green dots directly to the west of the property and across the street. And another neighbor has supported the variances but did not give a signature, and that neighbor is the one that's located at the corner of Head and Chisholm, and that's the yellow dot that you see. And Mr. Rao has also approached the immediate neighbor to the east a number of times, but did not get a response. And that's what you're seeing there in the black highlight. And if you scroll to 6 and 7, you will see the letters of support. The variances we are requesting have no impact to the neighborhood. It is a prominent characteristic feature in this neighborhood to have some properties with narrow spaces between dwellings. And we have read the comments, and planning staff note that the variances will not have an impact on the adjacent properties or the surrounding area. We reviewed the staff report and agree with the staff opinion that the variances maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The variances are minor in nature and have no negative impacts to the streetscape and the surrounding properties. We are presently in the pre-consult phase for the heritage, and that's to remove the property from the Oakville Heritage Register through a notice that's called Notice of Intention to Demolish. And we are also, it's in the report, we are also willing to accept the attached conditions placed by the Heritage Planning should the committee approve the variances. And this concludes my presentation. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. Are there any questions or items of clarifications of Ms. Villa at this time? Okay, I see none, and no one, has anyone called in for this property, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, I do have somebody who wants to speak, and just give me a moment, please.
Sure.
It is Susan, Miss Susan Ramier. She is, just if she can unmute herself.
There, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, Miss Ramier, we hear
Yes.
you. If you're able to turn your camera on, please.
I'm trying. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry, now it's on.
Very well.
There's a bit of a delay.
It's okay.
The camera's on on my end.
Well, for some reason, we see you as camera off.
Yeah, and it's...
But okay, if you're unable to, that's fine. Go
I'm
ahead.
here.
We hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. First of all, the owner did not attempt to contact me several times. I was given the plans and I was told that there were no changes. I just want to be clear. Is the property, the proposed property, going to be closer to my property? Because that's unclear from when I read it. If there is no change in the distance between the two properties, I have no issue. But if there is going to be encroachment, then there is an issue because I can hear everything. It is such it's literally a pocket that I can hear every conversation. And secondly, the concern that I have is because we're so close, they were doing some work beside, and my sump pump was running like 24 hours when they had flooding issues. And so I am a little bit concerned about encroachment. So I can't tell from this document if you're getting closer to me or if that distance is going to stay the same.
Okay. Ms. Villa, I'll let you comment. Go ahead.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. There is no change to the setbacks. We are actually working on the existing conditions, and that's what we are asking for, which is that 0.59 meters. As well, the second story builds on that existing separation distance and the setback as well. So there is no change. It's not going to be any closer to the property line.
Okay, I'm good then. I'm okay with the height, everything. I just don't want the building to get closer. That's it.
And also, I did note you did ask about, I suppose, grading. We did have engaged a surveyor to provide a grading design. I know it's there's some changes to the planning, and so it has been submitted, but it had to be withdrawn because of Bill 23. But surely with the surveyor's proposed grading plan, it was designed to make sure that there be some water management within that property, within our property, so that there's no adverse impact on the neighborhood, on the neighborhood.
Yeah, because there was a major issue when they had the flooding, and I was impacted by that. So,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, is there anyone else that was waiting to address the committee?
There is no other phone calls. However, would you please get the address from Suzanne Remier because we need it to be stated.
I'm at 142 Chisholm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Remier. All right, we will take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move that this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the test of the Planning Act. I'd note that the variances are largely an existing situation, and where they don't comply with the bylaw, tend to be very minor variances from it. I would also note that there's 2 letters of support. One resident spoke with concerns, but it would appear that that resident has been satisfied. And I would make that approval subject to 3 conditions. That approval is conditional upon property being removed from the Oakville Heritage Registry, that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated January 12th, 2023, and that the approval expires within 2 years if the building permit is not issued.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Ms. Villa.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Application CAV 037 at 194 Front Street. Again, this is application CAV 037 of 2023 at 194 Front Street. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. Good evening, Mr. Cockwell.
Good evening.
Do you have a presentation that the town staff will put up?
This is perfect, actually. I had one other thing to speak to. I can speak to it orally. You have the report. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. We're seeking 3 minor variances, all of which have received no objection in the minor variance report. You can see from the table, the first variance request is to permit a minimum rear yard of 7.43 meters. The second is to permit a maximum lot coverage of 35.47% for all buildings. The third is to permit the maximum residential floor area ratio for the detached dwelling to be 30.16%. The owner has spoken to the neighbors. We've heard no objections and have provided for your review 3 letters of support. Accordingly, we seek the panel's support of these minor variances consistent with the staff's recommendation. There's one other issue which I thought I might address with respect to the report. Respectfully, the minor variance report raises a new issue that comes out of left field for us, and that issue being a reference to bylaw 151119A, a requirement that the minimum front yard should be 6 meters. So by way of background for the panel, we had extensive consultations with the zoning examiner, Kelly Lannis, and determined from those discussions that the only 3 minor variances were those which we have received staff support for in the minor variance report before you today. Over many months of discussion with the town and revisions to reduce the size of the covered porch, that's the area in green in front of you, per the town's feedback, which was done, the minimum front yard setback of 6.0 meters was never raised before this Friday in the minor variance report. Now, it's more than likely the reason this wasn't raised by the zoning examiner or anyone else at the town is because they understood the following points, each of which we believe negates this being an issue and should not prevent you from approving the drawings as submitted this evening. So first, the entire building, so we're clear, is a pre-existing legal non-conforming use. The setback at its widest point is 3.6 meters, not the 6.0 meters required by section 1511(1)A. It's been this way since it was constructed approximately 3 decades ago. Second, pursuant to bylaw 412(1), the building being a legal nonconformity, it can be enlarged, repaired, or renovated, provided it does not further increase the extent of the nonconformity. That isn't proposed here. The foundation does not move in the plan before you. So from the point of measurement of the foundation, which we say is the correct measurement point per section 1511(1)A, the nonconformity is not extended. This is not an issue. Third, with respect to the green shaded area closest to the property line, the covered porch, the measurement by the bylaw again is from the foundation to the property line. The foundation distance to the property line is 3.6 meters throughout. The 2.38 meter figure raised in the committee report on Friday, when we received that report, is the distance from the covered porch to the property line. There is no foundation under the covered porch, and thus that measurement, we believe, is not the correct or relevant one per section 1511(1)A. The true distance across the frontal lot for the purposes of 1511(1)A is 3.6 meters. And again, that 3.6 meters is a legal non-conforming use. And perhaps this might be interesting as well. And fourth, the gray shaded area at the bottom, which you can see, is 1.29 meters today from the property line. That is being removed. So in fact, the legal nonconformity is being reduced from 1.29 meters from the foundation to the property line, it's reduced from 1.9 meters from the foundation to the property line and increased to 3.6 meters from the foundation to the property line and 2.38 meters from the property line to the covered porch, which again does not have a foundation. It has pylons, which you can see are the little boxes drawn in the green area. So we argue that this is the sort of sum up, the 1511(1)A wasn't missed by anyone because it wasn't raised with us by the zoning examiner or anyone else from the town before Friday. And we say it's not a required variance, the plans being a renovation of a non-conforming use permitted by section 412(1), and in fact reflecting a reduction in the legal non-conforming use. If you are not inclined to support the drawings as drawn, we're sort of in a bizarre situation of having to try and seek a minor variance as to a legal non-conforming use, which is not something you need a minor variance for. So that would be a bit of an odd situation to be stuck in. So we would respectfully request that you approve the drawings as submitted. If you're not so inclined, we request that you approve the 3 minor variances which were sought and supported by the minor variance report, and permit a deferral of the section 1511 1A issue, which was only raised on Friday on no notice. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, you did a great presentation. Thank you. Perhaps we can hear staff's comments on this issue. I understand your reasoning, and I'm just wanting to hear from them. Who would like to go first? I see both.
Yeah, through you, Chair. What is the question specifically?
So the question is the variance that you indicate might have been missed, which is the minimum front yard shall be 6 meters to a minimum front yard, which is measured to 2.38 meters. And Mr. Cockrell's argument is that this is an existing condition and it's not a variance that was missed.
So through you, Madam Chair, our zoning examiners identified this variance as a missed variance and that it would not be considered legal non-conforming. So that's why it has been included in our report as a notwithstanding that this variance has been missed. That's the extent of the information I have on that. It's been identified by our zoning examiner through the process.
Okay, so just so that Mr. Cockrell understands the process, if we so choose and approve this application and you continue to feel that this variance has been missed, then where do they go from there?
So the plans would either need to be revised in accordance with the zoning setbacks, or a further variance would be required.
Okay.
Can I address that, please, Madam Chair?
Yes, just give me a moment. Are there any other questions of or items of clarifications from the other members before we continue? Okay.
Just wanted to add that it will be a building permit cannot be issued until all the zoning requirements are met or a variance has been approved. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yes. Thank you for making that point. That was the next thing on my mind, is that if you proceed, let's say, Mr. Cockrell, just so that you know, if we proceed and we approve the variances as submitted, the application as submitted, and you cannot comply with the variance that was missed, then you will have to resubmit, as you mentioned, a new variance application or comply with what the zoning examiner has provided as a missed variance. Just so you understand. Now, you had something to say. Go ahead.
Well, 2 points. One is that we did have a zoning examiner whom we worked with for many, many months and reflected their comments over many, many months. And this was never raised before Friday. So it's a little bit late in the day. We argue for that. Second, if you can please, or if someone can please bring up the drawing, you'll see that a setback of 6 meters would put you probably about directly in the middle of the house, a house that has existed for 30 years. So this doesn't really make any logical sense. Again, this is a legal non-conforming use, and we're seeking to reduce the legal non-conforming.
Okay. So from my perspective, I can't make the call for the zoning examiner or presume to speak on their behalf. I know you've been speaking with them for quite some time. I'm just, what I'm going to say is that we can only approve the application on its merits and with the variances that are before us now.
So just so I understand, we're sort of left in limbo land a little bit because we say there is no new variance needed.
It could very well be an error. I'm not sure. I mean,
Yeah.
given the drawings that you're showing and where the 6 meter front yard shall be, I honestly don't know whether it is correct or not. So I would proceed with the application as it is, as we've heard it. I'm willing to hear from my colleagues as well, but my perspective is we would proceed with it as applied for, with the 3 variances, which town supports, and then you go back to the drawing board and figure that out with them, because we're in a he said, she said kind of point of space right now, and I can't really decide between you. Basically, I can only decide on the application as it is in front of me, and I can inform you that that is a potential, that there is a variance that was missed, and that you would have to comply or come back to the Committee of Adjustments if someone does not agree with your reasoning, and that's all I can do.
I certainly respect your decision, but if I might note, this is extremely unfair that this wasn't brought to anyone's attention over many, many months. But thank you for your consideration.
Any further comments or items of clarification from the committee members? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I think we're in another deferral situation here. I think it's
I agree.
Applicant's best interest. I applaud his attempts to have this rendered as not a requirement. I'm not convinced that this falls under legal non-conforming use in the one sense that, yes, he's pulling back the porch from one area, but he is also increasing the width of it, which creates a new non-conforming situation, and it's at a greater length than what exists today. You know, I do this reluctantly because I applaud the applicant for what they're doing to this house. Even if it needs to be a 6 meter variance, I would have no problem supporting the variance that staff have identified, because you know, we always look at what the impact of minor variances are. In this case, I think there's no impact. It's completely positive. I can't, in all good consciousness, approve a plan tonight with this issue, with a site plan that doesn't comply. I would, you know, and I also understand it's frustrating, but I do think, you know, there's onus on the town to identify, but I think there's also onus on the applicant to make sure that everything complies. So I'm not sure that's one party's fault here. So I can't support the application tonight as it stands, but I would strongly suggest to the applicant that they seek a deferral and work this out with staff and come back.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Rockwell, I'll also direct your attention to one more thing. Let's say the application is not supported by the committee members and it fails, you'd have to come back for an entire new application, and the fees for that are much higher than a deferral fee. So there's something to weigh there. We are going to give you the courtesy of, should you choose to take a deferral and then come back with a full set of variances, and at that time, as Mr. Talowski said, you know, we're happy to look at the application as a whole on its merit. And I mean, we already like what we see, so the chances are that it will be favorable. But it's your choice.
Can I hear what Mr. Flemington was going to say before we?
Oh, did you have your hand up? I didn't see you there.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
Mr. Flemington.
Yeah, no, I had my hand up as I was going to suggest exactly what my member, Mr. Talowski, said. Is I know that it is very frustrating when, you know, you're working with town staff and putting together the application, and when something is raised as late as when you heard it. So I think that, how you address that variance, would be something that you would address yet again. And, I think that, how that comes forth, I, kind of would support that. But we need to have the drawings and everything and the discussion for, the other people who are in the neighborhood. And I think that, I can't see a negative impact considering that how the existing structure is on that site. So, I think that, a deferral is such that you don't have to go through the process a second time as Madam Chair suggested. I mean, it's not often that, when this is kind of the second one tonight, but, typically these are dealt with at the beginning of the meeting, but, having heard what you said, I think, my advice is to go with the deferral, and I would support a deferral. So those are my comments.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask one?
Mr. Hardcastle.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe Mr. Hardcastle has something else to say, and then you can.
I'm going to be brief. It's wonderful to work with this committee that is so good at being clear and concise in terms of what our thoughts are. I would agree with what has been said thus far, and I think the good advice is to move forward with a deferral at this point in time. I think it would be, I think you touched on it, Madam Chair, in terms of, if this committee were to advance the application as it is right now, and there is the requirement to deal with this non-complying front porch situation, front yard setback, then there's going to be another application fee and process time, etc. So time and money wise, it is the efficient and appropriate thing to do to do a deferral, and I would certainly support a deferral at this point in time. Like Mr. Talowski said, this is good work in terms of addressing this house, and I would definitely support the variances coming forward, but appropriate process and way to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Go ahead, Mr. Cockrell. What would you like to say?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your consideration and certainly your resounding advice, which we'll heed. Thank you, and seek a deferral. If I can ask, just from a process perspective, the three were sort of good to go, so to speak. So what do we do? Do we just seek to amend that and add one, or how does it work? I'm sorry.
I believe what you need to do is amend your application through the deferral. It goes through the process again. There is a notice that goes to the neighborhood, as you are aware, with your first application.
Right.
And then the Secretary Treasurer will definitely get you in as soon as she can, possibly within that time frame and that turnaround. I know that she'll do her best to do that. Yes, Ms. Secretary?
Yes.
She's in
yeah, if I can add something, there is a deferral fee. Once you submit the amend page 5 of the application which requested variances. And also I want to add something in regards to the zoning review. We always tell anybody there is no full zoning review of the application if you submit the application without the building permit. So if you submit the building permit, the zoning review will be full. However, if you submit the application without going through the building permit, the zoning officer will review only variance that you apply. So in this case, I would suggest that no matter zoning review is done, they're not like, they're reviewing what you have requested. So in this case, once you submit the page 5, they will review again what you request variance in addition to this one that you already have.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so I heard you correctly. You are going to request a deferral. So now we are going to move a motion on your deferral, and we are tabling your application. Okay, very well. All those in support of a deferral? Okay. The application has been deferred, and we will see you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Have a good night. All right. Application CAV 193 of 2022 deferred from November the 29th of 2022 at 131 Mayfield Drive. Again, that application CAV 193 of 2022 deferred from November the 29th at 131 Mayfield Drive. Good evening, Mr. Wallace.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be in front of you once again. I'm proposing, so I just want to take the committee on a bit of a timeline here. This application was brought to the committee on November 29th, 2022. After going through a building permit application process, the zoning plans examiner identified 3 minor variances that needed to be resolved through committee of adjustment. Upon our application to committee, it was determined that planning department did not support the 3 minor variances, and with the recommendation of the committee, we took a deferral of that particular application. It turns out that when we reached out to staff after the application to take a proactive approach, the assigned planner was no longer with the town of Oakville. We were directed to contact Mr. William McConnell, if I believe. And for several weeks, Mr. McConnell did not give us a reply. And I believe I understand why. There's clearly been a staffing change within planning department. I welcome the new staff. We were told that our application would not be looked at by planning as a part of the normal circulation process before we submitted an amended application back for deferral. This process was quite troubling to me, simply because we deferred in good faith to hope to work with planning staff, and we had taken a proactive approach to remove the first variance number 1, which was in regards to an encroachment of a window well due to it exceeding the permitted maximum width of 1.8 meters. We also proactively decreased the height of the pitched roof of this style of home from 10 meters measured from established grade down to 9.3 meters measured from established grade. There was no change to the GFA at the time because we wanted to find out where planning was on this. Would there be an amicable number that they'd be willing to support? And in the absence of being able to work with staff, we had no choice but to resubmit on direction of my client to re-engage in this process with the amended variances that you have before you. So the amended variances are, in regards to building height measured from established grade, the bylaw requires 9 meters. We're proposing 9.3 measured to the ridge of the roof. And we're seeking an additional GFA. The zoning bylaw permits 41% lot area ratio in this instance. We are proposing 43.96, an increase of 2.69 square meters in this instance. Upon reviewing staff's comments received before tonight's hearing, we were surprised to see that we did not continue to enjoy the support of staff. And so it's kind of put me in a situation where I'm kind of flying blind, and I don't think another deferral, we've already done a deferral. I think we need to proceed per the merits of this application. We submitted a report to committee on November 28th. It was a justification report that I provided talking about the variances. And in fact, even at that time, I had agreed with planning staff to lower the roof to where it is today. We also deleted the extra wide window well to 2 separate window wells that met the test of the bylaw. And again, like I said, I did not change the GFA. It's my understanding that there are 2 petitions of support on the application that were submitted as a part of our original application. And to date, I don't believe that there are any objections to the application. I do note that fire department had added a comment on the second submission, talking about a lack of access to the rear yard due to a side yard setback reduction. We're not seeking a side yard setback reduction. All we did was just break up the window wells. They are permitted encroachments in the side yard. So I was curious to see fire department staff, which wasn't present in the first report, but was present in the second report. Again, like it's difficult for me to proceed. We believe that the application itself has merit. We don't understand why planning wasn't able to work with us. It could be because of staffing issues, but we believe that with the concessions that we gave, that was a good starting point. And as such, we believe that the application on its merit satisfies the 4 tests, is minor nature, is desired development. At this point, I'm all I can do is offer to answer any questions the committee may have on the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. I have a question for you. The first time around, I'm sure staff had the same comments with respect to scale and massing, and just looking at the elevation, did you consider trying to break down the design of the home a little so that it didn't look like a big box? And I think that's probably one of their major concerns is the scaling. I think they would have probably supported the rest of it if there was an attempt to break down the design somewhat to avoid that look of massing.
I think that the front of it's kind of key to the presentation, the architectural style of this building. It is a modern Georgian style home that kind of celebrates the front elevation. I think breaking down the massing kind of takes away from the street front elevation of the home. Lowering or demassing the building just for the sake of demassing the building, we think would render a building that is not as attractive as it could potentially be. We did various studies internally about how this can be achieved, and it wasn't a desirable looking home. We looked at other applications, other custom homes in Oakville. In fact, one of the Princess Margaret dream homes is a very similar architectural style. It does enjoy a larger lot, but this is a quite attractive, stately home, and we thought that breaking down that massing would do a disservice to the building. So that's why we had proceeded with what we had. As we're not seeking any other setback variances, front, side, rear yard, and we're well under coverage, the massing was mitigated because it's not triggering any other zoning issues with the home. Also further, at the rear of the home, it steps into, we acknowledge that there are neighboring one-story homes on a street that has a variety of homes, both 1- and 2-story homes. There's a home on the corner, a flat roof home, which overpowers its neighboring homes. So we didn't want to overpower, so we shrunk the house in at the back to acknowledge, because our house, I apologize, the neighbors' homes are actually further back from ours. So there was some sense of demassing without taking away from the symmetrical architectural style of this particular building.
I appreciate that, and thank you. Are there any other questions or items of clarifications of Mr. Wallace at this time? I see none. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Tlowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for staff. The applicants indicated they deferred once to work with staff, weren't allowed to work with staff, so there's no point in deferring again. We had several applications at the beginning of this meeting requested deferral so that they could work with staff to address the concerns. If the applicant here were to defer again, would staff work with him to try to satisfy staff's concerns, or would he just be sent back to the committee again?
Through you, Chair, to Committee Member Tulowski, we would work with the applicant. What we would want to see is a set of revised plans that address staff comments, and then we would be more than happy to have a meeting with the applicant and discuss how those changes address staff comments.
Thank you.
Could I ask why we weren't afforded that opportunity the first time? Was it because our resubmission was deemed to be insignificant enough to warrant a return call from planning staff? Or, I mean, it doesn't seem, you know, fair, to be honest.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I can't speak to what the previous situation was, as I was not contacted myself. But should you reach out to planning, there is a process and a number of them in place at this time to manage these deferrals. And that is something that we have been doing fairly consistently and all across the board since the start of this year. So more than welcome to reach out to myself, any of the other town planners on the call today, or as you've indicated, Mr. McConnell.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions before we take the matter into committee?
Madam
Flemington,
Chair, thank
go
you.
ahead, yeah.
I understand the frustration of the applicant, and it's unfortunate with regards to an applicant that is trying to move things forward that experiences what you have experienced. And I understand why you're here again saying, well, you know, we felt that, you know, we did not want to be heard by the town of Oakville and the planning staff, or what was happening with that staff being unable to achieve any amendments to this application. So therefore, we're here before you submitting it again. You know, I recognize the comments that you made with regards to the response to the question that the Madam Chair asked you with regards to massing. I think that, you know, when an applicant is looking to achieve a variance such as your first variance, that is something that, you know, does need to be addressed in a format so that the dwelling does not, you know, have a negative impact on the neighborhood. I do recognize the comments that you made with regards to other houses in the neighborhood. I am also aware of other houses that are of the style that step how they are built to sort of achieve, you know, what it is that the applicant is looking for, but it still offsets to, you know, achieve, you know, what the residential neighbors may or may not have objection to. So I just say that because I would have no hesitation in, if you were to request a deferral, to support the motion of a deferral, having heard from the planning staff, you know, that in these circumstances, you know, they are willing to review the next steps. So I just put that to you because with regards to that first variance and with regards to the massing, I think that, you know, if you were to go back, maybe something could be presented in a different manner. So those are my comments.
Mr. Tulowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question to the applicant along the lines of Mr. Flemington's comment. I mean, we heard your explanation of the massing, and I don't think anybody's questioning the attractiveness, the design of the house. It's the context of the house where it is and not being compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. My question is, if you go back and work with staff, are you willing to change the massing of the house and potentially on like stepping back to second floor, or are you, married to this design?
I think that based on the direction that we have from the owner of the property, who is frankly in love with the style of the home, what we would be doing is addressing the height variance by an additional foot. If that means reducing the height of the building by an additional foot, floor to floor height, so that we're 9 meters in compliance and significantly under the height measured from the dirt line, visually in reality, I don't believe that that necessarily changes the massing of the building in this step down fashion to be more sympathetic to the existing neighbor dwellings, which at some point in time may be redeveloped as well. We have to be, we acknowledge the situation today. So I think there's a possibility for us to eliminate that height variance, but I don't know if there would be a willingness to change the architectural style. Where there might be some flexibilities at the back to reduce some area at the back.
You're looking at about what,
those conversations.
200 square feet, right? So,
yeah, 19 square meters. Yeah.
so that
I think it's, I'm sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair.
Oh, no, it's okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's what we had hoped to engage with before we came to you today. Like it was, I just put out a stepping stone and I think it was just bad timing on the part of staff. So if committee tonight believes that our application has some merit, but needs to go through a more proactive planning involvement process, then I think a deferral would be the responsible thing to do. I don't think risking a refusal is a prudent and responsible thing for our client. But to answer your question directly, Mr. Talowski, I don't believe that the owner will want to change the architectural style of this home. He loves the look of the home.
Thank you for that. Personally, I have less concern with the height than the upright two-story massing of the building, and some of the massing would have to change to satisfy me on this application.
And in regards to the presentation in the public realm, the front elevation?
Yes.
I see.
unless you don't have an RFA, basically.
Right. Comply to the bylaw, and we don't have any.
Yeah.
There's no.
Yeah, because then you have a right to build as of right.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I can just clarify on that point, I recognize you could build this house a foot shorter and take 200 square feet off the back, and there's nothing, you don't need to come to the committee. But the fact is, you are at the committee asking for extra that doesn't comply. And when an applicant does that, I feel the onus is on the applicant to try to mitigate the fact that they're asking for something larger. So if you continue to ask for something larger, I think the town, myself, I won't speak for my other committee members, will continue to seek a design that tries to lessen the massing from the front of the house. You can reduce the size and seek a building permit and build this exact public realm. That would be your choice.
Thank you. I understand your comments, Mr. Chair. Mr. Talowski.
Talowski.
Sorry.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before we take the matter into committee?
Madam Chair, so just for clarification then, Mr. Wallace, then are you okay? Are you in support if we were to defer this application?
Yeah, I am. I am. I think it's the responsible thing to do. I can read the room as well as anybody else. So I think that I would be willing to continue to engage with planning staff, take a deferral. I guess my concern is that if we were to come to an amicable number on GFA, say we reduce the height, we come to an amicable number on GFA, and I come back before you in 2 or 3 months' time, I risk the chance that this committee still doesn't like this house and won't support any slight increase of GFA beyond where we are. So I'm in kind of a tough spot. At the end of the day, I think a deferral is still the right thing to do. Work with planning and then come back and show that good faith on both sides. Hopefully have planning's support, and committee will be swayed by our efforts, and we'll try again.
So
I have to clarify. Sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, thank you for your comments there. You know, and with going through that process, and wherever you sort of end up with the town and then what is coming forth, I do know that I have seen other applications that have been before us that have received written support from a significant amount of the neighbors. So, you know, in the event that you get there, I encourage you to, you know, do that as well, because, you know, that the massing and everything and some of our decisions are based upon that. So once the town and you sort of reach the next steps, that'll give you a very good gauge as to, you know, where we would be at. So I'll just leave you with that.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Wallace, I'm just going to clarify something. The reason we're having this discussion is because the answer to our question was that your client is married to the design. They love the design. They want to keep the house as it is. As a committee, I've been on this committee for years, and I can tell you that we want nothing more than to work with the applicant and for the town to be working with the applicant. And when we see that there is a matched interest there, we're thrilled. So the reason that these comments are coming your way is because it seems that they're stuck on that design. And now you've heard from Mr. Tlowski, from Mr. Flemington, where we stand when there is kind of a standoff, where if I can use that language, in terms of where we would see a give or take in terms of the negotiation on the merit of the application as well as the design. And so I just needed to clarify that, but we want nothing more than for you to be able to work with the town and come up with something that's acceptable to both parties, and both parties are happy. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, typically we would vote on this application without suggesting a deferral. I think though why we raised it is how you presented your application this evening and what you had experienced. So I think this is fair because of what you had experienced, where you felt like you weren't getting the services, and we heard from staff saying like, okay, well, they can't speak to what happened before, but we heard from them that they're willing to work with you. That's the only reason why I'm in support of a deferral right now. Otherwise, I would have voted on the application as applied for, like we always do. So I just also want to make that point.
I understand.
Thanks.
It's a unique application.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Tlowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everything about this application is concerning me right now. I'm concerned about the process that the applicants indicated he went through or didn't go through, and I'm sure he's feeling the fool me once kind of feeling right now. I'm concerned with the design of this house because I don't believe it meets the intent of the official plan, nor is it appropriate. And I'm also concerned that if we defer it, the applicant's going to come back with the exact same design. Madam Chair, since this is a night of breaking convention, I'm going to go a step further, although highly unpopular, I'm sure. Is a show of good faith, Madam Chair. It's correct me if I'm wrong, if the applicant requests a deferral, he's going to have to pay another deferral fee. If the committee defers this application, I'm not going to have to pay a second deferral fee. I'd be willing to move that the application be deferred and not have the applicant request a deferral as a sign of good faith for what's gotten us here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about that before you mentioned it, but I was actually leaning to having them share the cost because I understand that he was stuck on what they wanted, and the same thing with the town, that they couldn't provide him with an answer. I mean, based on his recollection of what happened. But since you've already put it on the table, by all means, we can take a vote on it, no problem. If we choose to waive it completely, it's certainly on the table.
Madam Chair, I'm in support of Mr. Tulowski's suggestion on this one, just so you know.
Very well. Mr. Hardcastle?
I would support it as well, yes.
Okay. So if you do decide to take the deferral, we will, I apologize for this.
It's okay. I have one at home too.
I keep trying to, just give me a second. You know, the easiest thing to do is put him in front of me and just walk away. So if you do decide to take the deferral, we will unanimously vote to waive the deferral fee.
Thank you. That's a generous offer.
Madam Chair, I'll just simply move that the application be deferred and any deferral fee be waived.
Okay, very well. Thank you. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. The deferral has been approved and your fee has been waived.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the proactive discussion with the committee members. I do appreciate it.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
We have minutes to confirm for February the 8th. Would like to move those minutes, Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. And then motion to adjourn.
Sorry, Madam Chair, you said February 8th? Didn't you mean
Yes.
March? Did you not mean March?
My notes say February again. You're right, it is March 8th because I wasn't present in this. Yeah,
It's my
so it is
mistake.
March. So March 8th.
I will still move March 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. And motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. We are adjourned at 8:44. Madam Secretary Treasurer, please let us know.